So I figure we could talk a little bit about photography on a budget. Every now and then you see somebody do a video like this where, you know, they spend like $500 on a camera and call it cheap, and then throw it on a $1,200 tripod and say, well, you could use any tripod. I say bullshit to that. This is a Canon T1i we got off of MPB for 60 bucks. Attached to it is the Canon 50 1.8 STM, which was also 60 bucks. I figure we could splurge. This is the little Pancake 24, which is also about 60 bucks. And this is an Amazon Basics tripod, which belongs in the garbage, but was probably about 20 bucks. And with these things, we are going to see if we can create art, goddammit. So we're in a creek here. I have my lovely wife, camera person, and assistant holding the camera, but she's wearing fancy clothes. We're going to talk about landscape things and some portrait things, and generally try to keep things cheap. Speaking of keeping things cheap, Lightrooms cost money, so I'm going to shoot JPEGs and be like, that's what it is when it's done. So I'm not hiding behind my mad editing skills, which are mad. Truly a cheap photography challenge. Let's make movie magic. Okay, these roots on the rock here have caught my eye, and I will now attempt a landscape composition in my most Heaton-esque way possible. It's about the minimalism. I can't do a northern accent. That was like Ringo doing Thomas Heaton. I am going to need my tripod. Support. Normally I use a 5 DSR and a Benro Mammoth, which can support me. So this is slumming it, but that's okay because it's for the art and not being hindered by gear and consumerism. So in some ways this is better, but in almost every way it's worse. Okay, f5.6, 1/13 of a second, 2-second timer. JPEG set to monochrome for maximum art. Bugs up my nose. Oh, my knees. I'm stuck. Oh, God, this is hard. Etta spotted this lovely little confluence of branches and bridge and hopefully obscured graffiti. And I've switched to the 50 1.8, which many people before, and surely many people in the future will discover, is on a crop sensor body, a lovely portrait lens, especially if you stop it down. At 1.8, it's pretty soft. Some people would call it artistic. If you stop it down to 2.8 though, pretty nice. So we'll try that here, and then we're going to keep walking and see what else there is. God, the bugs. Well, the bugs are awful, and we forgot to bring water, so we're probably going to turn around here. It's lovely.
Gonna turn around here.
We're going to turn around. We found this lovely bench, which will put B-roll over my talking in a second here. And again, a great opportunity for the 50mm. I tend to like the black and white JPEGs out of this camera a little more than the color ones. So I kind of did a couple of each to illustrate that. And so for these couple shots, depending on the color settings, between 250th and 500th of a second on the shutter, black and white seem to do a little better, a little overexposed, and the colors seem to be a little richer if you did it a little darker. f2.8 for sharpness, but also depth of field. ISO 100 to give this little guy a fighting chance. That's that pretty much. Yeah, these aren't bad little cameras. And then I mean, this whole rig is like 120 bucks. The whole point of this isn't to say good gear isn't worth it or nice or desirable. I'm certainly missing several of the nicer features of, for example, my tripod. One of those features being its tendency to not fall over, which is very nice. So for this one, we've got 2-second timer, f/22 at half a second, ISO 100, and a very ginger balance for the leveling, the tripod, and my knees, which are slowly failing on me as I sit here.
Aside from old man knees, I found that the biggest frustration in the field was the tripod. Don't get me wrong, if the $20 tripod is the only tripod you can afford, it's still worth getting. It will help your photography, but it will also be a pain in your ass. Limited options for leg placements and sticky movements meant that there was a few times I gave up on nailing a composition and just settled for wherever the tripod happened to be. Once I got back home and looked at the pictures, my frustration became my self-imposed prohibition from editing. Post-processing has always been a part of photography and is an integral part of realizing your vision for a photograph, whether you're doing it digitally in Lightroom or chemically in a darkroom. I actually was pretty happy with the portraits, but the landscapes really weren't hitting the way I had visualized. Given all of that, I decided to up my hypothetical budget a little bit to include an entry-level but good photography tripod and a subscription to Lightroom.
So, as I may have already said in the voiceover that I haven't recorded yet, one of the pieces of gear I missed the most was a proper tripod. And this is not a fancy one. This is the first decent tripod I got, the Manfrotto Element Traveler Big, which is 120 bucks or so. So definitely not free, but far from crazy. The things that this does better than the Amazon Basics one, kind of everything. The legs are much easier to deal with and move around. You can spread them out more. And crucially, it has a ball head, which is really easy because you can just move it around instead of like the world's worst pan tilt head. But anyway, we've got this little running water composition. That's kind of what there is around here. And so we've got, I think it's half a second, f/22, ISO 100, 50 millimeter lens. And then I'm going to be shooting everything on this side of the video in RAW and JPEG with the landscape color profile. That way we can talk about the worthwhileness of investing in Lightroom or some other kind of editing program. There's another little lovely spot down the creek that's more in the shade, so we'll probably go there next. Just walked into like Shelob's Web. The orcs are going to get me now.
So, could I have gotten this picture with the Amazon Basics tripod? Probably, although it would have been a lot more annoying and taken a lot longer to get there. But if I was stuck with the picture out of the camera, I wouldn't be nearly as pleased with it as I am with the edited version. So I think the conclusion really is get whatever camera and lens you can get your hands on, spend a little money on a tripod if you're doing landscape stuff, and then spend the time, the money if necessary, to learn to edit your pictures the way you want them to be seen. And that is what I leave you with today. Like, comment, and subscribe, I guess.